Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is called Discerning What is True, which my channel means simply is truth is all there is. There's nothing else important in life except pursuing truth, especially spiritual truth. I'm going to be reading a particular book by Alvin Kuhn. And this book is simply called Easter, the Birthday of the Gods. Those of you that might be interested in reading what I call esoteric works in the past, there is a group, what I call a publishing house called Keshinger, that is Kessinger, Publishing Limited. They're located in Montana. So they're rare, what I call rare esoteric reprints, and these are reprints from the past that you can grab a hold of. This is a paperback book that I've gotten from the Interlibrary Loan here in Aiken, South Carolina. So let's get into the reading of the particular book. Thank you for being here. So again, it's simply called Easter, the Birthday of the Gods by Alvin Kuhn. His first quote here simply is, "For since by man came death, by man came also the resurrection of the dead." And let me do something real quick here. So the springtime of the soul, that is, skylark at heaven's gate. When one begins even faintly to gain some sound intellectual comprehension of the deep import of the Easter festival, the challenge to express its message of considerable exaltation for the human spirit must strike the mind with dismay. Marvelous as words are to embody concepts of the mind, they here fail signally to carry to the inner level of consciousness the reality of the experience which the Easter hallelujahs and hosannas are designed to celebrate. It may even be said truly that the meaning of the great festivals of the vernal equinox is to be restored not at all the domain of mental concepts, even when these yield full cognitive understanding, but is to be realized in the sphere of transcendental recognitions that belong more to feelings than to thought. Yet even when the experience is allocated to the realm of feeling, it is feeling elevated to the seventh degree above what the word commonly connotates, that is, in human psychology. It is a freeing that may be said to overpass the mind and soar into heaven of mystical ravishment of the soul and supernal delights. Yet it is feeling that is generated by the mind itself, the child of pure cognition. So clear is its insights that they lift the soul into a very ecstasy of lucid discernment of exalted blessedness. Even at the highest peak of realization for mortals at the present human stage, the grade and dynamic force of synthesis, which the Easter message can adorate, is only a faint morning glow of the full sun of divine glory, which the future evolution of man's consciousness is destined to bring to reality. The best that our minds can give us now of our eventual divination is only by the faintest analogy seen as a foretaste of rapture that will greet us at the summit of our mount of attainment. The mind can formulate a fairly true and correct construction of the issue and elements combining to bring us to the shining hill of the Lord, can even see in what fashion the powers of deify, that is, unfoldment, will open out for us a grander vision of beatitudes. Yet, this is only an outline, a diagram, the signs and symbols of its overpowering reality of being cannot by sheer mental genius be transformed into conscious immediacy of experience until the human shall find himself transfigured by the inner radiance of his own final Easter morn. In venturing upon the attempts to portray the significance of the Easter event, one is moved to repeat as an invocation the lines of Tennyson, inspired by his observation of the waves breaking internally on the ocean strand. Break, break, break on the cold gray stones, O sea, and would that my tongue could utter the thoughts that arise in me. In language employing the very remarkable psychic witchery of words falls short of expressing the wonders of our apotheosization, that is, the one remaining mode of expressing the profundity and the majesty of our uplift in song, the best that mortals can do. Standing thus in prospect of their destiny home of glory is to throw all the unction of their mind and soul into rapturous contemplation of the delights of imperishable Eden and pour it out in the measures and rhythms of joyous songs. Human throats should wail at night first with strains of praise as human hearts rise in anticipation of that glory which shall be theirs. Surely the least that men can do is to raise to the heavens their anthems, their chorals, their oratories, to hail in annual memorial their divinization to be. For be, it said at the outset, Easter celebrates the event that is yet to be, not an event that is past. Yes, indeed. To the inevitable extent that past events lose their cognizance for deep impressionisness and become shadowy and unrealized memories, the mighty power of the Easter occasion loses its punkery, goad to conscious recognitions in proportion as its celebration is taken to be the commemoration of an event that has long ago happened and passed into history. It will therefore amaze most readers to be shown that no less an authority than St. Paul, that is in in 2 Timothy 2:16 through 18, emphasizes this very consideration when he warns the brethren, quote, "But shun profane and vain babblings, for they will increase unto more ungodliness. Their word will eat as though a canker, or whom is Hymenaeus and Philelius, who concerning the truth have erred, saying that the resurrection is past already, and overthrow the faith of some." End quote. As, according to all scholarly datings of St. Paul's epistles, this admonition to Timothy would have been penned near the year 60 AD, i.e., within 2 or 3 decades after the resurrection of Jesus in Jerusalem. It's a reminder to the brethren that the resurrection was a concept of doctrinal import, the reality of which was to be actualized by man in the exaltation yet to be must be received as a message of total unrealized import for all future Christianity. Next section, Easter, our future goal. The great religion of the Western world suffered a fatal loss when from about the 3rd century down to the present, the cryptic sense of a purely dramatic representation of man's still unattained burgundy into Godhead on the bright morn of his evolutionary Easter was buried and forgotten under the ignorant misconception of the event as the physical rising of one man, human body from its rocky hillside tomb on a given first Easter dawn. If that is what, under Christian persuasion, we are to believe happened 2,000 years ago, and that is what we are asked to assume that the great economical memorial celebrates, then the ceremony of Alleluia merely embellishes the memory of an event long ago. But its cosmetically herald universe deification of human life is in fact to be searched for in vain in the record of history since it occurred. Christian history records not a trace of the fulfillment of that human glorification at which the epoch event was proclaimed as promising. Every choral in the intervening centuries rang with the exalted cry that, quote, "Death is swallowed up in victory. The grave has lost its sting. Man no more shall die. Christ's resurrection gave man his immortality." Yet death has seized every man born since that day, and the cemetery graves still hold their dead. It is as St. Paul has said, the majesty, the beauty, and the true exaltation that alone can lift the human soul to the heights of on every recurring Easter morning, inheres in the certain knowledge that the Easter glory is still the goal of our progressive march up the hill of being. Our shining goal still gleams afar in the distant horizon of our vision, an undimmed star of our radiant future. Easter is ceremonial that crowns all the other religious festivals of the year with its springtime halo of resurrection life. It is to dramatize the final end in victory of man's long struggle through the inferior kingdoms of matter and bodily incarnations and grades of fleshly existence. Other festivals around the year memorialize the various stages of this slow progress through the recurring round of the cycles of manifestation. Easter commemorates the end in triumph. All lower obstacles overcome, all enemies conquered, all darkness of ignorance vanished, all fruits and the golden harvest of developed power garnered in the entire barn of an interholy of holies of consciousness, all battles won, peace with aeonic victory assured at last. Quote, the fight is over, the battle's done, the victory of life is won. The song of triumph had begun. Hallelujah. The Greek word for the resurrection is anastasios, the standing up, end quote, the, quote, the uprising. It has little, if at all, been noted that the anastasios is only by a little prefix distinguished from the estasis or ecstasy, with EC and EX meaning out, O-U-T. The etymology here brings us face to face with an item of unrecognized moment, that our final disassociation of soul from body at the end of our last incarnation will bring us an experience of ecstasy. Human life, a Dora struggle, will be measurable, buoyed up in spirit if the pre-regenerating soul knows that at the long terminal, his release will come with rapture beyond thought. If, as much religious philosophy has it, man enters in the world of objective existence in tears, his first utterance a cry. He will be strengthened throughout his long and toilsome way by the assurance that he will make his final exit from his tomb, that is, of the flesh, in transport of Eden bliss. His, quote, upstanding, end quote, is also his, quote, outstanding, end quote, from his grave or body. For the sages, that is, Greeks, use the same term, with but a change of the vowel to mark the distinction of both the body and the tomb, for body was soma, S-O-M-A, and tomb was sema, S-E-M-A. In the esoteric philosophy of this knowing race, the human body was a living tomb, you see, grave, sepulchre, and mummy case in which the divine soul is incarnated. Late in, quote, death, end quote, until resurrected by the sun, S-U-N, of divine light and truth in the springtime, turn of the cycle following the winter of sleep. It may be said here that until the senses of the term death and resurrection is restored to biblical interpretation, no true envisagement of the purport of the Easter festival is at all possible. Using solar symbolism and analogies, in depicting the divine soul's pre-recognition round the cycles of existence, the little sun, a radiant spirit in man, being the perfect parallel of the sun S-U-N in the heavens and exactly copying its movements, the ancient sages marked the four cardinal turns of its progress round the zodiac year as epoch stages in soul evolution. As all life starts with conception in mind, later to be extruded into physical manifestation, so the soul that is to be, that is the God, that is G, little g, of a human being is conceived in the divine mind at the station of the zodiac marking the date of June 21st. This is at the top of the celestial arc, where mind is most completely detached from matter, meditating in all its purity. Then the swing of the movement begins to draw it downward to give it the satisfaction of an inherited yearning for the mayon of experiences which alone can bring its latent capacities or the evolution of consciousness to manifestation. Descending then from June, it reaches on to September 21st, the point where its direction becomes straight downward, and it there crosses the line of separation between spirit and matter, the great Egyptian symbology line of the horizon, and it becomes incarnated in material body, conceived in the aura of infinite mind in June. It enters the realm of mortal flesh in September. It is born then as the soul of a human, but at first And for a long period, it lies like a seed in the ground before germination, inert, unawakened, dormant, in the relative sense of the word dead. This is the young God, G-O-D, lying in the manger, asleep in the cradle of the body, or as in the Jonah fish allegory, and the story of Jesus in the boat in the storm on the lake, asleep in the, quote, H-O-L-D, hole of the ship of life, when the tempest of the body, elementary passions raging all about him, he must be awakened, arise, exert himself, and use his divine powers to still the storm. The elements in the end will obey his mighty will. Once in the body, the soul power is weighed in the scales of the balance, with the line of the border of the sign of Libra. The scales runs across the September equinoctial station, where soul is now equilibrated with body, and out of this balance comes all the manifestations of the powers and faculties of consciousness. It is soul immersion, that is, in body, and in equilibration with it that brings consciousness to function. Then on past September, like any seed sown in the soil, the soul entity sinks its roots deeply and deeply into the matter, whereas its later stages of growth, it must be able to utilize the energy of matter, atomic force, to effectuate its ends for its own spiritual aggrandizement. It is itself to be lifted up to heights of cosmic consciousness, but no more than an oak can exalt its majesty form to highest reaches without the dynamic energization received from the earth at its feet. Can soul rise up above body without drawing forth the strength of body dynamo of power? Down it descends, then through the October, November, and December path of the sun, until it stands at the nadir of its descent on December 21st. Here it has reached the turning points at which the energies that were stored potentially in it, in seed that is formed, will feel the first touch of quickening power and will begin to stir into activity. As the winter solstice of the cycle, the process of evolution of spirit into matter comes to a standstill. Just what the solstice should do means in relation to the sun. And while apparently stationary in its deep lodgment in matter, like moving water locked up in its water's ice, is slowly making its turn as on the pivot from outward to downward direction to movement, first tangentially, then more directly upward to its high point in spirit home. So the winter solstice signalizes the end of death and the rebirth of life in a new generation. It therefore was inevitably named as the time of the, quote, birth of the divine Son, S-U-N, in man, the Christmas, the birthday of the Messianic child of spirit, the incipient resurgence of the new growth, now based on and fruitified by roots struck deep in matter, begins in that time, or at this turn of the year, as the Old Testament phrases it, and goes on with increasing vigor as, like the lengthening days of late winter, the sun power, the spiritual light, bestirs into activity the latent capacities of life and consciousness. And the hidden beauty of the spirit breaks through the confining soil of body and stands out in the fullness of its divine expression on the morn of March 21st. This brings the soul in a burst of glorious light out of the tomb of fleshly death, giving it verily its resurrection from the dead, end quote. And then it has consummated its cycle work by bursting through the gates of death and of hell, and marches in triumph upward to become a Lord of life and high spirit of the cosmos. No longer is it to be a denizen of lower worlds, a prisoner chained in body dungeon pit, a soul nailed on matter's cross. It has conquered mortal decay and rises on wings of ecstasy into the freedom of eternal life. Its triumphs with earthly clay is forever ended, and aloft it sweeps like a lark storming heaven's gate with hymns of victory pouring from its exuberant throat. From mortality it has passed to bright portals into immortality. From man it has become God. No more shall it enter the grim underworld of death. We quaff the summer bright, and our immortal grown. We enter into light, and all the gods have known. Easter then is the climatic festival of all the year, since it signalizes the consummation of all man's life in triumph and bliss, transcending presence, knowing. It is set in the calendar to intimate to the feeble human intellect the wonder of the transfiguration of our earthly life from periodical decay and death into immortal grandeur of being. At his Easter, man leaves forever the kingdom of mortality, of his attachment to the elements of the world, and steps across the golden threshold into the paradise of a conscious bliss that indeed is not too extravagantly poetized as a home of crystal radiance and bright seraphim beatitude, I should say, sweetened by transporting music. At the point symbolized by September 21, in his cynical evolution, the divine soul is born into humanity, making descent from the realm of the Father's kingdom of normental being. If, as says Shakespeare of man, quote, my mind to me a kingdom is, end quote. So, the Father's brooding mind is the mental kingdom of the universe that substrates of conscious purpose with permeates, in fact, structuralized. The whole animated creation, as it constitutes urge and driving force, is that the energy of the eternal will which, as primary cause, stamps its form and nature upon the movement of all conscious life, first manifesting as unconscious or subconscious directly towards the achievement of its ends, then becoming gradually more clear conscious of its own purpose and efforts as creator's experience aligns the developing mind with the logos of the cosmos. Unseen as yet by general religion, it was necessary for God's sons, who must start as mortals, to gain immortality, to descend into matter and be long subjected to his sluggish dominance. Enormity and mistakenly has conventional religion, in its hasty and superficial and erratic interpretation of biblical material, assumed that this ostracism of his children by God himself to lower worlds remote from the Father benign presence was somehow a sad consequence of the children's wayward arrogancy, and an untoward and disastrous misadventure of primal mankind. The truth envisages no such direful miscarriage of the plans of eternal mind. God's mental prodigy could well be entrusted to the tutelary custodianship of nature, indeed injected into that her maternal womb, since nature was from the first and eternally ensouled by the Father's energetic mind power, and all nature possesses exhibited the divine design at work in order to manifestation. God could safely consign his youthful offspring to the educated guardianship of the, quote, old nurse, end quote, that is Mother Nature, whereas the pedagogy Mother Nature could never mistreat her divine pupils, herself being the pre-capturess, the living exemplar and expression of the cosmic mind. We're going to stop here. We're going to take a break. I may come back later. The next section will be called Soul in Nature's Womb. Again, this is from Alvin Kuhn. His work called Easter, the birthday of the gods. Alvin Kuhn is probably the most significant esoteric writer that very few people even know who he is. Most of the credit goes to Elena Blavatsky as being esoteric, which I don't think she had the idea as deeply. She went in a different direction more towards the East and Tibetan type of perspective, unlike Alvin Kuhn, who strictly saw that Christianity had the truth itself, but it shows into exoteric perspective instead of esoteric. It chose to, as Eusebius and Augustine chose to basically what they did was simply made it literal, make it easier for people to understand. Yet there is truth in this, very much so. So, anyway, I'm going to take a break now, dinner break. So, thank you for being here. We'll come back, maybe tonight, probably not. And wish you a good night, and you take care. Thank you for listening.